management for scientific workflow.
Okay, thank you and good morning everyone. I'm happy that you all made it, especially the colleagues from Germany who had a lot of extra time in summer this night. I'm presenting parts of our work on scientific workflows with a specific focus on data management. This work is of course joint work with various colleagues at the University of Stuttgart, and this work is also part of a much larger project in the Center of Excellence on Simulation Technology at the University of Stuttgart. So there are various institutes involved, not only those from computer science, but our focus is on one of these important aspects here. So what I'm going to present today is at the beginning some basics on simulation workflows to set up the context here. Then I will illustrate this with an example on structure changes in bones. I will talk about options to deploy such a simulation workflow in the cloud. So this is basically a link to what we have seen and heard yesterday. So basically you can take this part as an example of applying the technology we have heard about yesterday to this area of simulation workflows. Then in the next step I will focus on major aspect of data provisioning here and introduce a framework that we have developed to support that. It's called a simple framework, and also link that to some cloud aspects, and then if time permits some remarks on traceability and usability for simulation workflows. So what are the kind of applications, the workflows we are talking about here? So in general, scientific workflows have increasingly been adapted to enable the implementation of scientific applications. So that means we cover various domains here, and this covers a broad spectrum from any kind of experiments, analyzing the data you get from these experiments, and also all types of computer-based simulations, which are the specific focus of our work. And typically these simulation workflows are compositions of long-running numeric calculations. They realize some kind of mathematical simulation model. So perhaps this is based on partial differential equations. And a very typical scenario is that we have to couple various of these simulations to get to the point, to get the depth of analysis that we want to. And this brings in particular, some major aspects of data management complexity here. So this complexity covers aspects like we have proprietary data formats for each of the simulation tools, and therefore we very often need quite complex transformations of data to take the output from one tool to modify in such a way that it can be used by another simulation tool. And the running example here is exactly such a coupled simulation, as I said, on the structure changes in bones. So the two main simulation steps is first biomechanical calculation, which takes as input some typical motion sequences of persons and tries to simulate the internal stress distribution in some human bone. And then this outcome is somehow transformed characterized by the ETL processes here, and is input to a second, more fine-trained simulation step, systems biological calculation here that works on an ideal solution for daily routine of this person. So as you can see, those two main steps are implemented by different tools, and this sequence is not only executed once, there's a cycle that the outcome of this simulation step is again prepared as input to the first one, and this is repeated again and again until the sufficient results are present, or that the time frame that we wanted to see is reached. So, if we want to deploy such a simulation workflow, as the example we have seen, we can distinguish two types of organizations that do this kind of simulations. First of all, there are some specialized organizations for those that their key business is doing this kind of simulations, so they may be able to afford specialized hardware, specialized infrastructure, own it or rent it. But there are others, small organizations, research institutes, that only do this kind of simulation from time to time, so they may not be able to have this complex infrastructure, and for them it makes sense to deploy such a simulation workflow in a public cloud, and somehow reduce the effort for this kind of simulation. This picture shows how this could look like for our sample workflow. So you find some of the main components, like these two simulation tools here somewhere in the picture, but they are quite different, so they have to be treated differently for this kind of cloud deployment here. So let's look at this Octave tool first. This is a widespread tool, heavily used, and therefore for this tool it makes sense to provide it as a service. For example, using data that's provided in Amazon S3, for example. So this would be this simulation software as a service option that we envisage for this tool. The other one, this Pandas tool, outcome of a local research project, not that often used, highly specialized software. So in this case, we can assume that a scientist who wants to use this simulation tool in his simulation workflow has to deploy it in the cloud infrastructure. And yesterday we have seen the techniques that we could exploit here. So that's exactly what we do here. So just to give two examples here, we can describe for this Pandas tool the service topology in the notation you have seen yesterday. So basically we have two stacks here that are relevant, the stack for the simulation software itself that is deployed on a public virtual machine here, and the second stack includes the information about the database, because this Pandas tool is using a database to store all the input and output and intermediate results. So this is the way this pandas tool communicates with the other steps in the simulation workflow. So as we want to keep this information separately, here the decision was to provide this database in a private virtual machine. Of course, one could have decided differently. That is just one option here. And as you can also see, we have some additional policies associated with some of the parts of this topology here. For example, if we want to encrypt this database. So, and of course, there is not only the topology description, but also a plan that specifies how to deploy this topology. And here we have the main steps. We can do some steps in parallel. Finally, we combine the two paths in configuring the database access, and finally compiling the simulation software. So this was the first part here, just to illustrate how we can exploit the technology we have seen yesterday, also in this field of simulation software. And then let's focus on the data management aspects. As I said, what is specific here for simulation workflows? First of all, we have to consider that those workflows are individually designed by scientists. So if a new problem is ahead, they have to define a new workflow that exactly describes how to combine various simulation tools to get the results that are needed. And therefore we have to consider that this group of persons typically are not computer scientists, so they have limited skills in terms of defining workflows, but even more important for us, they have limited skills in terms of data management. So what we are looking at here is some kind of abstraction support to make data management issues for these scientists as easy as possible, let's say. So they have to be able to specify their data management issues on the appropriate abstraction level, and this also means we don't want to force them to specify all the low-level technical details when we want to access some specific data store, retrieve data from this data store as this database that pandas uses for its internal data. So abstraction is important here. Furthermore, if we look at the fact that we typically have these coupled simulations, which means we have different tools that are not integrated at all. They have heterogeneous data formats, and this results in quite complex data management processes that are needed to couple those tools. And therefore, the data management should be also as generic as possible to allow this kind of coupling for all kinds of simulation tools. And to support these aspects, we have developed, in particular Peter Reimann has developed, a framework called Simple that extends scientific workflow engine or workflow engine in general to support this kind of abstract modeling of scientific workflows. Here I just want to highlight those parts that are red in my slides, but not that red on the wall here. So one major aspect of this framework to support the abstraction are generic data management activities that are available in the modeling tool and that are also available in the workflow execution environment and some implementation components provided here. So here you can see some of these data management activities that are provided here. Basically, they cover main data management purposes. So send a command to some data source, retrieve data from a data source, store data in a data source, and do some data transfer without bringing all the data to the workflow level. And basically the processing that is supported by this framework means that the user specifies this more abstract data management activities, and more abstract means that, for example, only logical data source descriptors are used there. Then they are transferred to the operations, the corresponding operations in the simple core, and the next step is supported by metadata information to pick the appropriate connector and or to pick the appropriate data converter that turns this generic data management activity in a specific one that accesses an Oracle database that goes to a MySQL database and provides the appropriate information. And the technical details are abstracted from the scientists defining this kind of simulation workflow, which makes it much easier for this group of persons. And now, to bring those two things together, we can exploit exactly this technique in some management plans that we provide for the Pandas tool, for example, and those management plans can then be used to do the data provisioning for the simulation tool, and in the same sense to support the transfer of the results data, and allows to specify this kind of things in a quite simple and abstract way. Now if we look at this sample workflow again, I would like to focus on this ETL part again. So here you can see that these results from this various executions of the Pandas software are somehow aggregated, so the data volume is reduced here. And
there might be a strike of the public power corporation, the electricity, because they want to privatize it. So this is